Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the District of Sault Committee of the Whole meeting on Tuesday, May 19th, just after 1 o'clock. I wish to call today's Committee of the Whole to order, and it's the first time that Council has been able to meet in person since the COVID-19 orders came into play. So welcome back, everyone. It's wonderful to be in here with you. I do wish to acknowledge that we are meeting on the territory of the Sauk Nation, and as we are meeting with Committee of the Whole, in terms of rules of order, there's only just a motion that is needed, no seconder required, and we're just working out some IT issues, and so our staff are working on that so that we can hear from our presenters and continue on in this way. We are in the process of opening back up to the public and working out those procedures, so we're just hoping everyone can bear with us as we go through that. So Council, in front of you today is today's agenda, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions from anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. For reports, written comments and questions are submitted to info@sauk.ca, and these will be summarized and read aloud for the public record. We do have one email in regards to item 4.1, which our corporate officer will read out probably as we get into that report. Ms. Mushata, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to 4.1 then, which is air quality issues related to outdoor burning. And we have a lengthy report here, but I'll turn it over to staff to walk us through the report.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council. You do have a lengthy report in front of you. Definitely needs the focus of the Committee of the Whole, and I'm going to attempt to step through and paraphrase this report as, respecting our time using this temporary technology. I do want to first thank our Fire Service Assistant and Emergency Program Assistant, Ms. Barlow, for really putting a lot of good time into the report research, and of course, Deputy Barney for jumping into the open burning smoke control regulation understandings and working with our residents right away when that regulation came in. So in front of you, you do have a report here that is really here for information reasons, and we're looking to have staff authorized to solicit public input into revisions on bylaw 292 with respect to pertaining to any open air fires and campfires. We're also looking forward to bring an amendment to the bylaw for open air fires, campfires, looking at from the perspective of reducing fire risk, considering air quality, public health, environmental concerns that are now aligned with new provincial regulations and of course enforceable. Moving on to the support, on the report summary. The staff report on air quality was really requested on November 18th of 2019 from a special council meeting. Both fire and bylaw staff have been responding to many complaints. These include concerns of fire-related smoke and air quality. So this report was really crafted in February, ready for a March Committee of the Whole pre-COVID, and is coming forth to us now due to the first opportunity to have a Committee of the Whole. There's really been numerous reports that are substantiating the negative effects of fire-related smoke on human health and the environment. The province recently revised the open burning smoke control regulation, so Class A land clearing fires in the district already been impacted from this. This report will be looking at summarizing the history of Sauk's outdoor burning regulation, looking at some of the statistics, the negative effects that we've been seeing, and identifying some air quality metrics that are currently not available in Sauk. Also going to be highlighting that wood burning appliances is not part of being included in this report, and that future recommendations for wood burning appliances are to be, considered under the definition of outdoor burning. So that would be a separate report, dedicated time and focused on what appliances could be done as well in recommendations for Sioux. We'll also be looking at other alternatives such as backyard waste management programs and examine other outdoor burning air quality indicators. We're going to be outlining initiatives and bylaws and regulations of other neighboring communities and looking at some other considerations of proposed amendments to the fire protection bylaw. And provide a summary of recommendations and also identified that there's obviously a need for some public engagement on this. Really, we're looking at protecting the health of the residents and exploring revisions of certain sections of this bylaw. So the previous council section here is really started in 2007 and went to 2012. There were several public input meetings, committee of the wholes, and several amendments that have been proposed. From 2016 to now, I've experienced many complaints that have come in as well. And the COVID situation has really amplified the problem more than anything. There is a focus on poor air quality, specific to areas such as Swift and Spit and Kaltassin. And there's been vocal advocates that I've experienced and had dialogue with since my time here as the fire chief. There's been several concerns that residents have brought up, from the ventilation index, secondhand smoking issues, and chimney-related problems also. The report looks at a little bit of the background of burning in Souk. We do have issues with beach fires and incinerators, and they have been prohibited all year round. Large machine-built piles and backyard burning right now in Souk runs from October 1st to May 31st. Any kind of fire and high-risk activities are prohibited when the fire danger rating is noted at extreme. The table on page 5 and 6 here really is outlining this quite nicely. And I won't go into detail, but it's a good summary that was put together as far as what we have now in Souk. Both the bylaw and the fire department, we respond to many complaints. The bylaw is making many efforts to work and support our residents, and will dispatch the fire department when required. After hours, we have a duty officer that supports lots of complaints as well. And the fire department typically gives out warnings most of the time, given to non-compliant residents, and uses the opportunity to educate residents. Going into detail as far as some of the complaints and statistics that we have here, the fire department's responded to 63 non-emergency backyard burning complaints in 2019. The residents were educated on the regulations and would typically self-extinguish the fire with their own water source. An additional 7 complaints were assessed to be hazardous to the property and human safety and resulted in extinguishment by the fire department. The bylaw department itself has responded to an additional 48 complaints in 2019, and this gives us a total of 118. Resident backyard burning complaints include concerns of health risks from smoke, the smell of smoke, smoke getting into open windows in their home, burning after hours, fires left unattended, burning too close to property lines, coarse garbage and prohibited materials, burning outside the designated times and permitted times within the season, several days in a row with the common complaint, and of course burning when the venting index is poor. There are many telephone complaints that do not result in bylaw or fire department responding, and it's determined that burning is in compliance with the bylaw. In any cases, residents who are being impacted by smoke express considerable frustration. Class A fires, the Sun River area, trigger many of the complaints over the past several years. Starting in 2007 until recently, Class A burns were permitted for 3 consecutive days. Now with the open burning smoke control regulation, this has impacted Class A burning, so very few properties are now eligible for a permit due to this new regulation, and Deputy Barney has been working with them hand in hand. Particularly the expanded setbacks from schools, homes, and business and care facilities is having an impact. So the open burning smoke control regulation has limited Class A fires now to 2 consecutive days. Past iterations of the district bylaw have both been restrictive and less restrictive. Backyard burning has produced most of the complaints. The complaints stem, as I mentioned, in the Whiffen-Spit and the Billings-Spit, Kaltassin area, and of course Sun River. The Whiffen-Spit and Billings-Spit areas are out of our sewer specified area, and residents do not need to check the ventilation index before burning, even when the ventilation index is poor, and this stems to showcase a lot of our complaints. High density development neighborhoods are often affected by the smoke from backyard burning in the area. Going on to air quality and human environmental concerns, smoke is really a significant source of air pollution. Both outdoor burning and indoor appliances have been impacting this. There's many kind of health effects that are being reported from many studies. During fair and poor venting days, pollutants remain trapped until there is a change in the weather. That's the importance of having a good venting index. Burning of vegetation and wood really introduces a whole range of contaminants similar to secondhand smoke and from cigarettes. Just moving on down to the next page here. Particulate matter, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and several other types of hydrocarbons. Ash and dust, fly ash that stem from larger particulates is what we're seeing. In February 2019, the new regulation called the Practice of Agriculture Environmental Management came into effect. This really means that the Ministry of Agriculture is encouraging farmers to explore new alternatives. Farmers produce considerable amounts of biomass and will have times where they need to burn with respect to invasive species. It's proven to be less harmful though to look at different alternatives such as chipping and compost. Numerous reports have shown the negative effects of fire-related smoke on human health and the environment, and according to Health Canada, the main pollutants are particulate matter, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds, and other types of hydrocarbons as well. With respect to the venting index, residents who live in the sewer specified area are really expected to be consulting the Southern Vancouver Island Ventilation Index. Ventilation index is really an important measure of the atmosphere's ability to disperse pollution. In this section here, you can see a good rating is from 55 to 100, and a fair is between 34 to 100. The current rendition of our bylaw 292 is for backyard burning must be a good or fair. Moving on to page 8. You can see that we have a table here that gives an example of what the ventilation index system looks like. Residents that live outside the sewer specified area need to consider the ventilation index, need not consult. The air quality index and air quality health index are a couple other specific data measurements. British Columbia, the air quality health index is available, and the new air quality health index is really there to help us understand the impacts of air quality on our health. These measurements are coming in 1 hour type of increments, and our closest station is located in Colwood. The health risk posed really by a mixture of pollutants and particulate matter, ground level ozone, and nitrogen dioxide is what this index is trying to show. It's important to note that the weather station in Colwood would not gather sufficient air quality data specific to SUIT, really to determine the effects of impact of outdoor burning on the district's air quality. However, much of the research is showing that just how hazardous wood smoke is as far as pollution goes. School weather station at Journey Middle School does not have these measurements, and they're not included. Research in general is just really impacting how negative the effects are of smoke. Note that smoke is impacting human health and particularly vulnerable populations, and we saw kind of the impact of this right now with COVID as far as an increase in March of the immediate complaints of people being cooped up in their home. The province of BC is really currently exploring new approaches, and a discussion paper on the review of air quality was an actual deliverable. Wildfires in BC have really drawn to attention, and in 2017 and 2018, our province was really on fire, and we experienced severe smoke coming in for days on end. The revised provincial open burning smoke control regulation is really reducing the eligibility of Class A fires in Hatsu. The smoke control regulation divides these into 3 different categories of sensitivity zones: low, medium, and high. It's important to note that SOOC is now located in its in the language in this as far as high smoke sensitivity zone. Our staff have already been advising residents to comply with this and helping with enforcement and education of this new regulation. We're comfortable deferring with the province regulation here. And a few things that we've highlighted here is that the open burning requirements are based on the diameter of branches of between 3 centimeters and 10 centimeters. So there's really anything greater than 10 centimeters, the open burning smoke control regulation will apply. The province's open burning smoke control regulation does not generally prohibit burning, but rather is aiming to ensure that open burning is conducted with minimal risk to air quality. Looking through the lens of this is where the district SOOC staff and council should be assessing its bylaws and regulations pertaining to how we work with open burning. Wood burning appliances and air quality would be looked at for future consideration. Wood burning appliances look to impact us about 25% of the pollution in communities. When we review some of our neighboring burning regulations, many have revised the regulations pertaining to open burning through the implementation of more restrictive bylaws. So paraphrasing what the city of Langford has done is they've amended it to reduce the amount of smoke, improve air quality by utilizing scheduled burn dates. No burnings permitted in long weekends is highlighted. City of Colwood recognizes improving air quality creates a healthy community. They've also enforced no beach fires year round. The chosen is quite similar to us. Their days are limited to 3 consecutive days, where SOOC has no limit on consecutive days. Water Point has similar rules. A permit is required during certain months, and there's burning of no green debris or leaves. I move on to the next page here. In the district's SANAG limits burning, reduces fire risk and air quality is a focus of them, and protecting the environment is paramount in an urban containment boundary. Anything outside the urban containment boundary requires a permit from October 16th to April 30th. Fridays all day and Saturdays can burn till noon. The Cowichan Valley Regional District put a lot of effort into things and actually brought forward a Cowichan Air Quality Partnership. Their goal was to improve local air quality and also making sure that the proper type of burning was happening in a limited amount of time between March 15th and April 15th and October 15th and November 15th annually, as long as the venting index is good. Burning of leaves and grass is prohibited, and they recommend alternatives to open burning and offer a free drop-off type yard waste program. We had recent complaints. One of the most recent ones I came across was the burning of considerable amount of green grass clippings and yard waste that totally smoked out the Wick and Spit area. The Metchosin area was actually able to do a temporary curbside debris pickup program that you may have seen on the news as part of the COVID-related issue. This Cowichan Air Quality Partnership is a collaborative project that was led by multiple governments, First Nations, and local air quality stewards. And they've set up a network of air quality sensors for residents to check out in real time as far as pollution levels in their region. Some of the considerations before we get into recommendations is it's important to note that it's been 8 years since the last amendments were put forward. The fire department's recommendations in this report are really looking to endeavor to find balance, a responsible type of approach, looking at new research that has come forward, impacts on health, what fire-related smoke does to the human body, and also be aligned with the position of open burning smoke control regulations. We really want to ensure that open burning is conducted with minimal risk to air quality. The amount of complaints and the amount of air quality concerns is really a priority of indicating a need to update and have a revision to our bylaw. Souk is in a high sensitivity zone, and we're looking at alternative methods to dispose of debris such as chipping and composting. Council really may wish to consider some offices to bring in debris or some sort of curbside pickup program. This would require considerable consultation and development and implementation. Options to sell or chip back the material back to residents has been done in other communities. We'd look at exploring the installation of other air monitoring systems, expanding setbacks, understanding that smoke is difficult to measure, and this has really come forward with us with the COVID-related complaints. Looking at reducing the potential numbers of months that campfires are permitted and revisiting the window time frame also. Limiting the number of consecutive days of backyard burning. Could also look at limiting the number of hours residents can burn the day. Revise the bylaw to indicate that Southern Vancouver Venting Index must be in a good position to apply to residents. Expanding on a list of backyard prohibited materials and revisiting the size of backyard burning piles. Introduce permits for all types of backyard burning and campfires, and consider implementing a ban on backyard burning on long weekends. Looking at revisiting and establishing maximum wind speeds, as this can be problematic with low winds and poor venting and high winds and the danger of embers. Defining the size of branches that are really aligned with open burning smoke control regulation. Look at regulations for outdoor pizza ovens and other types of chimney structures. And of course, align our district bylaws and initiatives with other types of actions within our community, such as the Climate Action Committee, Fire Smart Principles and Practices, any types of tree and bylaws. And of course, develop a SOUC outdoor burning air quality collateral of materials. We look at some conclusions from the fire department and the recommendations out of these considerations. This is on page 14 now. Class A fires have really not been impacted already. Well, Class A fires have been impacted already, so we just have to make sure that the bylaw is aligned with the province's open burning smoke control regulation. Shortening it, look at perhaps removing May. With respect to backyard burning, it's been 8 years since outdoor burning regulations have been reviewed. The new evidence-based research has really substantiated the impact of burning on human health and environment. And a responsible local government should be taking this new learning into consideration. Here is the bullets that I'll use as far as the fire department's recommendations or amendments to the bylaw. Ventilation index must be good on the morning, afternoon, rating on the day of the burn for all residents, whether inside or outside of the sewer specified area. Shorten the backyard burning season from October 1st to April 30th. Expand setback from property lines and structures, for example, to 40 feet, thereby reducing the nuisance smoke drifting onto neighbors' property. Establish a maximum diameter of branch size, 10 centimeters. Anything bigger would be a provincial open and smoke control regulation related issue. Include other items such as marijuana plants, leaves, and grass trimming in the list of prohibited materials. Be explicit about the maximum wind speeds, sustained or gusting, and where to get the wind information. Be explicit that smoke must not be a nuisance to neighbors and that the chief or designate authority to make a determination. Look at the maximum consecutive days, and of course encourage residents to look at other sources of alternative solutions to dispose of yard waste, such as chipping and or we do not have any issues, and there's no recommendation to change anything with respect to ceremonial and special and fire. With respect to campfires, though, they're year-round, and beach fires are prohibited year-round on private property only. And we've been dealing with some specific issues to Allen Beach, for example, whether it fires on private property or not. If anything's below the high word mark, that's on Crown land. Recently did a quick kind of cheat sheet for our duty officers that looks at all the different regulations, acts, bylaws of how to handle with things on the beach properly. And other communities have already banned beach fires in particular, but it's not really the proper way to do it. And a recommendation out of this report coming forward really to clarify what we're trying to do with beach fires. The fire department recommends that the ventilation index must be good on the afternoon rating of the day of a campfire. No further amendments would be required there. Any other recommendations as far as the fire department? It would be looking at outdoor fireplaces, peat ovens, being really clear on the illicit use, and making clarity on what beach fires cannot be done around. Really, you need to look at how to handle the beach fires on Crown land. Like enforcement fines, looking at stronger enforcement of Class A backyard burning and campfire regulations when residents are non-compliant. Would expand to include conditions that may contribute to really poor air quality. And prohibit open burning of any kind that is contributing factor to air quality that may be in and out of the district, such as a regional wildfire that is already affecting air quality and smoke. Stronger and more consistent fines for burning of prohibited materials. Really be looking at good public engagement as part of this process and having a good, robust online survey. The Fire Smart principles and practices, information from Climate Action Committee, tree management studies, making sure we're aligned with any other future initiatives in Souk. Our timeline would really be to have an online survey, getting it up and going within the spring and summer months here, with a fulsome submitted in September. There's some legal impacts that we'd be making sure that the district has to seek that we're in line with all provincial ministerial regulations, as well as redefining bylaw 292 to include considerations and management authority. Minimal budget impact on this, and of course we look like we're hitting several of the strategic pillars and relevant to what we've been looking at as far as our strategic plan. There's several attached documents in this report. Of course, our current bylaw 292, an update on a fact sheet from December 2019 on the open burning smoke control regulation, our district suit outdoor burning regulations and the public input that was received from February of 2008. And then we have a burning poster from regional district, and of course, burn less, burn better material as well. So this concludes my presentation of the report, and I'm here with Deputy Barney behind me, and we're ready to take any type of questions. With respect to audio quality, I might have to have our corporate director of corporate services support any kind of questions coming through Microsoft Teams.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Mount, for walking us through that report and all the information that you shared with us. I'll turn to. Did you have something?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just advise that Council is in receipt of one piece of correspondence related to the report heard today. It is under the understanding that the District of Souk is seeking input on open burning, but it does speak to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I don't think, so it is clear that open burning is recognized as a health issue by health officials. It is not permitted until June 15th, 2020, and to my knowledge is not anticipated that there will be a vaccine or effective treatment for COVID-19 on June 15th or anytime immediately after June 15th. So I think it's all COVID related, which is not specifically what this report is dealing with, but the Council has been provided a copy of the comments.
I have some comments for that if there's any additional feedback. Myself and Deputy Barney reviewed this.
Okay, so this is the, okay, so you had just read out the public input that we had received, and that was from Ms. Susan Jones. I just wanted to make sure that I noted her name, because this is, we can't have the public in here, so that's who that email came from. Is there something else that we need to do here? I don't. Okay.
It's okay.
Just. Okay, so just technical issues. So, Mr. McInnes, did you have anything further to add to this report?
We're just looking for direction from Committee of the Whole on recommendation to bring back to Council. As Chief Mount has suggested, this has been through Council a number of times, but not recently, 8 years since it was last put through Council. Lots of information in the report, but just some direction on Council, whether you would like to see us move ahead with some or all of the information, but some direction from Council would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open it up here. Councillor McMath.
1 second here. Okay. Right now, my preference is that we just oh, sorry, I'm being told I need to be louder. That's a first. And slower?
Louder and slower.
Okay. So I totally lost my train of thought. Okay, my personal preference is that we just review, so our bylaws match the province's recommendations or regulations. I don't think this is a priority. I would be curious to see the difference in smoke reports that have gone to the fire department this year versus last year, because with COVID, more people are at home, more people are doing yard work because there's nothing else to do, and more people are sitting at home also with nothing else to do to file these complaints. So just through your worship to the chief, how many fires did you respond to last year? And out of those, how many were following the correct procedure? And out of how many of those did you issue like tickets or fines?
Chief Mount, so the question was specifically, how many fires were responded to in 2019? How many of those were following proper procedure? And how many tickets or fines were issued?
I have some of those answers in the report. I do have Deputy Barney supporting me on trying to get some of those answers quickly back to you. I probably likely need to go in and kind of break it down even further. Page 6 is where page 6 and 7, we do have a bit of a breakdown there, but I assume Councillor McMath is looking for a little bit more than what we have in this report. Page 6 and 7 is where we just go into the 2019 data, and as far as responding to incidents, we had 63 non-emergency backyard burning complaints in 2019. And this is where residents were educated on the regulations as required and would self-extinguish the fire. An additional 7 complaints were assessed to be hazardous, and the fire department responded and actually did the extinguishment. The bylaw department responded to 48. I don't have the breakdown on details there, but a forthcoming report in the fall, we could break down that even further with the information that we have in our database on the type of compliance and looking at any kind of fines that were associated with certain incidents also.
I didn't catch the last part. How many fines?
Correct me if I misquote you, Chief Mount, but I believe that there will be a further report coming forward in the fall where they can further break those details down on the fines.
Okay, where I'm
That's
going
correct.
with this is
So,
that if
sorry,
everything.
One of the
moment.
recommendations with this report is to come forward in September with, a fulsome report on here's the changes that should be done to bylaw 292. Within that process, we can have a better breakdown of the actual question that Kath is bringing forward.
Okay. Where I'm going with this is if this is such a crisis, like if you just look at the numbers out of, say, 13,000 people on the low side, there were 9 fires that were put out by the fire department? That couldn't be out, like, 7, thank you, Councillor Bateman. So that to me is this is not a crisis. I would like to know the difference in reporting pre-COVID versus right now, because I feel like that has a large bit to do with it. Also, this COVID in particular is something that affects people's lungs, so that's an added stress and a heightened awareness to this issue. I'm very curious about the fines, because if it's such an important thing, it sounds like the majority have just been warning. So just like what's being asked and what's being stated doesn't, in my opinion, align with the facts. And smoke obviously is not great for people, I understand that, but until we have a facility where people have another option, adding further restrictions doesn't make sense in my opinion. And not only that, but if you have people who do all of this clearing and they stack it on their property, does that not add another component to fire safety as well? Whereas properly managed burns, which it sounds like most of the people are doing, is the safest measure right now. That's just where I'm at right now.
If I can summarize what Councillor McMath said for you, Chief Mount. Is this really a crisis if we have a population of 13,000 people and only 7 fires? It doesn't really seem to indicate an actual crisis. She is particularly interested in the pre-COVID reporting, as this seems to have added an increased awareness around the lung and smoke issues. Sorry, I missed that one there, but additional comment that if we do not allow outdoor burning, if the piles of debris that are being stored on properties, would this not add an additional fire risk to the community? I think I missed one of your comments, but we can get that in the minutes. But those are Councillor McMath's comments.
I'll do my best to kind of respond through this technology. So I think the first answer, as far as being a crisis, it's not a crisis on the suppression side of things as far as a danger. What I am seeing as far as complaints that are coming into the district is some pretty upset residents. And over the past 3 or 4 years, certain areas in Souk that are struggling more than other areas. And that's the Billing Spit, Whip and Spit area. And it might have to do more with densification and the way venting is not really working properly in those areas. Definitely would be really good for us to take a look at what COVID has done with a spike in complaints and have a good, clear kind of indication for a forthcoming report on that with 2020 data related to 2019 data. I think that would be a good idea to dive deeper into that. And as far as a hazard goes, the report is looking at the need for a proper type of waste management type of strategy as a recommendation also. So going hand in hand with, any kind of regulation change, there needs to be options for our residents. And that's what the report is trying to show, whether it's curbside pickup, yard removal days, chipping programs, selling back to our residents. That's probably part of it as well that would need to be done in alignment with any type of regulation change. So this is my quick answer there for you, Councillor McMath, and I hope I'm capturing most of it for you. Deputy Barney has a comment here. I'm going to relay it from Deputy Barney.
Just she said 7. There were 70 for to be extinguished.
Deputy Barney is clarifying that there was 70 fires that need to be extinguished,
And only 7 required us to extinguish.
And then 7 that required us to extinguish it. That he's trying to clarify that statistic for you.
Okay, thank you, Chief, Deputy Chief, and Councillor McMath. Councillor Beddoes, please.
Yes, direct this to our fire chief. My understanding is, first of all, is to receive the report, and then your other wish is to expand public engagement to try and get more up-to-date information and then come back with some recommendations or whatever. I actually have no problem with that. My only concern about gauging the public is the timing. Right now, we're in a COVID I don't want to say panic, but some people are panicking. If we go ahead with a study now, well, the COVID's front and center, I think you're going to get some skewed data. So I would much prefer that, I do agree that you engage the public, and I think that's important that we always try and engage the public. But we put it off till probably September, when cooler minds, because right now, and I've seen some emails, and one of which received today, there's some pretty strong opinions on that. And, but this isn't the norm. I mean, I hope it's not going to be the norm, this COVID thing. So I'm concerned about the timing. The second is when you say public engagement, you refer to online. Is that your only avenue, is just to do people online? And the reason why I say that is there's a lot of old curmudgeons in town, long-time Souk residents that sit on a fair bit of property, and believe it or not, some of them are not savvy with online surveys. Are you intending on having some other type of engagement so that the general public can be well represented?
I think I caught most of that there, and I'll do my best here to respond to that. So the first response is regarding timing. The report was done pre-COVID, so the intention originally was to be able to do, some research over the summer with the ability to have changes done before the burning season starts again in October. Now with the COVID impact, what we've probably seen already is, sensitivity to air quality and people being cooped up. And it's probably a prudent thing to time that properly. And as long as we can have enough information and get it into a report in time, so we can have something likely in place before, the fall, winter burning season starts again, is what we'd probably like to do. It would be the best thing as far as timing goes, as far as getting any changes done. As far as avenues go, as public engagement, there would likely be some other opportunities that we'd work with, whether it's, having a paper-based survey, engaging the public when we have other public functions, such as like a level of service kind of thing, or some public education thing, or when we're out in the public, the ability to handle it there, or when visitors come into the station. We definitely explore all best opportunities to gather information as best as possible.
Councillor Beddoes?
The other point that I would like to make, and it's one that Councillor McMath made, is until we have an alternative for people, especially on small lots, for burning, and we're going to make it even harder by, if we went through with this, restricting what they can burn, where they can burn it and all that, and we don't have an alternative until we have a place that people can take the yard refuse, it's, I think we're just going to piss people off more than we do now. So like I say, I don't have a great heartache over some of these things, but I think that we need to make it, tighten the noose. We need an alternative for people, and that needs to go hand in hand with this. I know it's just a report, but if we change things, then I want to see a drop-off center for garden stuff at certain times of the year. And I think that in itself will reduce the backyard burning, I'm just guessing, by half, if not more. And of course, again, right now with the COVID, as Councillor McMath said, there is people at home that weren't normally at home, and they're going nuts, so they clean up their yard and burn it, me being one of them. Not burning, mind you, but cleaning up my yard. The last point I'll make is that when you come to campfires and these fire pits and things like that, I don't agree with checking the index to make sure it's good. A backyard campfire is no worse than me and my wood stove, and I have a wood stove in my house, and I can burn that any day I want. And I don't see any more particulate coming off an outdoor campfire, providing you're using dry seasoned wood, which I do, as opposed to whether it's indoor or outdoor. I don't see it matters much. So I just want you to take that into consideration. Other than that, I'm more than willing to vote to allow you to engage the public, I'd be very interested when the final report comes exactly how you did engage the public, because again, you heard my concerns about that. So a very, very good report, and I'm in favor of allowing you to engage the public. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre, did you, okay, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Bados.
Sorry. Can I just make sure that Chief Mount heard those comments? So Chief Mount, can you just confirm that you heard Councillor Beto's comments?
Yes, there's a little bit garbled at the end, but I got the majority of it there. Has to do with, campfires not being a major nuisance and in favor of engaging the public.
Yeah, just with respect to the backyard campfires, he was disagreeing that there's a need to have to check the index before utilizing an outdoor fire ring for backyard campfires, as he doesn't see any difference between that and a wood burning stove.
Yeah, I got most of that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for the comments.
I guess what I was hoping to make is a few comments to clarify things a little bit. So it looks like the goals of this report, among other things, is to, hold on, we get a bit of feedback here.
I think it's how close you are to it. No. Go ahead. Mike, don't.
Okay, no? Anyway, it seems to me that we want to try and get our fire burning bylaws more science-based and actually take into account the COVID pandemic, but also bring into alignment the new provincial regulations. On the face of it, it doesn't seem like there'd be much need to bring the public into this. If it's going to be science-based and we're trying to bring it into alignment with provincial regulations, the public doesn't have a place. But I think we're also looking for a solution to things like backyard burning. We're looking to find out, what the temperature is in terms of what people would like to see happening. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have the public engagement on that basis. I also think there's a need, based on what I was hearing, which is that a lot of the complaints are really around burning wet leaves and burning grass, green grass. And that strikes me as an education thing, more than anything else. So I think we're looking at a composting facility, we're looking at the possibility of chipping, we're looking at education. I think all of those are potentially going to have financial impacts. I am interested in seeing those things happening, but I do think that we're going to be looking at some financial impacts. I was also curious about the pizza ovens specifically, just because I'm under the understanding that pizza ovens have very small diameter wood, very intense fire over a very short period of time, which seems like the perfect recipe for almost no smoke and no problems. So I don't understand why pizza ovens would be included. So I'm just going to throw that in there because it just seemed kind of weird. I'm just going to toss that in. And I guess in terms of COVID, I do think that we might potentially be looking at a new norm. We might be looking at COVID-20, COVID-21, who the heck knows. I don't know that this is necessarily over until we have a vaccine. I don't necessarily know that we can wait until we have a vaccine or until everything goes away. What if it never goes away? We need to get on with business. So I'm actually thinking we should be moving forward with the burning bylaw. That's my thought.
Okay, other members of council? Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, it sounds like most of the complaints are coming from Billings and Whiff and Spit areas. And is that because they are repeat offenders who are not burning properly or responsibly in that area? And if that's the case, I think we should fine them. That's a good way to educate them. I'm not in favor of any kind of knee-jerk legislation because of COVID. I think we should not rush into putting a complete burning ban on. And hauling of refuge to drop-off sites, for people with larger properties, you're going to be hauling truckloads weekly of debris, and that's not practical. And yeah, that's about it.
Councillor Bateman?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chief, for a really good report. We asked for this report back in November, and you've delivered. It seems to have a clean, clear plan. It's got public input opportunities, as we learned with the building process. There are other ways than direct public engagement through the surveys and through emails and letters. And those who aren't on computers can write a letter. It strikes me, it's been really interesting to see how we have swung from being a very restrictive community back in 2008 when the fire chief of the day, Mr. Kelsey, was running the show to an extent under Mayor Evans. And then things shifted to a much more permissive environment in 2012 under Mayor Milne, and a committee was formed involving a number of people who back in 2008, at the minutes we're reading here, were not in favor of too many restrictions. So we're at a stage where the chief is recommending we move to a more balanced place between restrictive and permissive, as we see with other local municipalities that it's extremely restrictive. Back in 2008 in Souk, you could only burn on one weekend per month between October and April. We currently have unlimited October to April, given October to May. That's 230 days per year that we are permitted to burn, provided if we're in the sewer area, it's good or fair conditions. And if I'm outside the sewer area, as I am in Whiff and Spit, I can burn any day, even on those poor days when smoke lingers in the atmosphere and the wind is not kicking up and moving it along. So it strikes me that the recommendations for backyard burns make a lot of sense, that we move to the vent index has to be good for all properties. The difference between then and now, of course, is that the science is in place to show that this small particulate matter is a major health impact on people with lung and heart conditions. And in this wonderful first world where we all live, there will be among those potentially 200 days per year, if we were to eliminate May from the burning season, enough good days that we, each of us, could burn the necessary dry materials. And I think we can carry on without a full backyard waste management program in the immediate, hopefully move towards that, since all mature communities do have such a facility. But in the short term, the chief will go ahead, do a public survey over the months ahead. I agree with Councillor St. Pierre that we can't just keep waiting. Otherwise, our 4 years are up, and our opportunity to impact things is long gone. It's the new, long gone. So, yeah, I'd be in favor of us moving ahead with the recommendations as outlined in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. So I'm just going to weigh in a bit here. So just to clarify, like a campfire is different than backyard burning. So a campfire, you don't need to check the index. You can light a campfire with clean split wood and have it in your backyard. As it says in here on page 14 and 15, it's aligned with clean split wood. Ventilation index does not currently need to be checked before having a fire. So this could be introduced to limit smoke going in and so forth. They do recommend though, and like a good rating, and I think that's a recommendation, but it isn't. So, but a backyard burn is different. That's where you're gathering up whatever it is and lighting it up. So what I'm hearing though from the fire department, it's not about banning all burning. It's just looking at where we've sort of grown as a municipality, what was once not sewer specified areas in some cases is. So now you have areas that were large rural properties that are now densely populated areas because things have changed. We've grown in the last 8-10 years, and areas that maybe had one dwelling on it have many dwellings on it. We have sewer specified area right up against the non-sewer specified area, even right over here on Church Road, for example. They're side by side because of where the pockets of sewer service are. This year, of course, is different because no burning is allowed at all, aside from campfires, although we still have people burning vegetation and garbage. So that's typically where I get called is so-and-so has lit their couch on fire and is burning it in their backyard as we speak. And why do we allow that? Well, we never do allow the burning of garbage, but it happens anyway all over town, including now. No, I mean, not now, but certainly on the weekend it did. So part of this is the ongoing engagement that has come about. We've seen the months change, so now over half the year you can burn, and in some cases you can burn whatever you want, which is why we have the complaints that come up from Whiffen and Billings Spit in particular. And then in Sun River, it was when large parcels of land were cleared and the burning went on for somewhere a week because the smoke would linger and linger and linger. So that's where it may not be an active fire, but it's one big smoldering fire that's happening in that particular area. And then, of course, it settles down in certain areas. And, of course, the provincial regulations have changed. So it only makes sense that in some cases that we modernize along with the provincial engagement. I'm not a fan of introducing any new legislation, though, while we are shutting out the public. But I think this is work that we could still do outreach on, and we can see what sort of findings we receive. Generally, online, to me, doesn't seem to generate a large amount. Highway 14, for example, thousands of people traveling this road, lots of complaints about the highway, but 150 people took time to do an online survey when there's thousands of people commuting all the time. So I think it's just one piece that we would weigh in and take into consideration. I do feel that there is a need that we need to start developing waste management services within our community, and we become more complete as a community in that way. So that's something that we need to move towards. Love the idea of some sort of service that could combine collect from residents maybe once or twice a year, because not everyone has a truck or the ability to haul stuff to a designated site. But of course, that looks down to what sort of service levels are we able to provide, and what are we as a municipality able to afford. For me right now, it's too early to make that determination, because I really want to see how COVID has impacted our residents, and we don't know that until come August when we see what tax collection looks like. But in terms of rolling on, like, to be able to burn, when you see how hot this past weekend, but weekends before, it felt like it was 30 degrees here. And it's hot and it's dry. And so in some cases, going back and removing the month of May, like, you still have 5 other months of the year to burn, right? When you're getting into dry wildfire risk, lighting up a dry pile of wood is just generally not a good idea. You're putting our entire community at risk for that, where you have many other months to get it done. So a lot of it will come down to communication and how we communicate out. Clearly, it will be the case, as Councillor Lajeunesse, raised, is we need to start looking at some fines in some cases. Because if time and time again our department is going out and putting out a fire, and someone's burning garbage, and it's too close to this, or I've heard once it lit their own shed on fire, we have a greater problem. That's an expensive resource to go out for somebody that doesn't care. I know from my primary health committee, we do have respiratory issues out here, not just in seniors, but in young children. Asthma rates are higher out here than they are in other communities because of the air quality and because of the burning and how it's impacting children. And of course, we know it's already impacted seniors in our community. This is all science-based. It's not a personal opinion. It's actual fact. So I'm comfortable with looking to see to have our fire department do that survey outreach, but I also doesn't mean that when we come back, are we satisfied with those findings, and what other outreach can we look at doing before we start looking at changing policy. I think it's just a starting point to getting some information in place, but I think in some cases there may be some things that we could examine, but I think it's going to be a step-by-step approach over time. Like we cannot eliminate burning without having any type of facility located close by. I think shortening a few months though is not out of the line, but again, that's what the survey feels. If somebody feels it's their right to burn on May 30th when it's 30 degrees and super dry out, maybe we'll have a difference of opinion, should that be the case. In this case, it's a bit different because the provincial orders are in place. That'll take us right into wildfire. No one will be able to burn anything till October, not September, but into October at the earliest. That is not our decision. That is a provincial order. We just have to manage communication and respond to it. But that's the reality of the situation. But yeah, I was around when some of this got adopted, and it was big campaign issue in 2008. A lot of time, a lot of resources into this. And some of it was just like, really, you feel it's your right to burn garbage in the middle of a subdivision. Like, the world has changed. And there are other avenues now of what you can do. Like, burning plastic is just never really a good idea. Hasn't been and probably won't be. But I appreciate, and this is where you've seen other communities start to look at, okay, we need to now shorten the days, the duration, and obviously the province has already examined this because they're making changes as well. So we need to evolve with it. I think that's what our residents expect from us, is that we need to evolve and change with the times. And I don't necessarily agree with some or all of this, but I am looking to, we need to just move on with the next piece of work, and all of this started pre-COVID anyway. So now we're just picking up some of the business now that we had tasked ourselves to doing. Okay. Councillor McMath.
Okay. Just back to the comment about the burning of garbage, through your worship to staff, is it illegal to burn garbage?
Fire chief responding back. Yeah, there's definitely prohibited materials, no burning in burn barrels.
Okay.
And, our bylaw has some language there as far as the proper type of, fires. And of course, the open burning smoke control regulation also in that quick fact sheet has a list of prohibited materials.
Is there a
burning-
fee associated with burning garbage? Is it a ticketable offense?
Yes, I would say yes, it's an enforceable ticketable offense, and I've witnessed a couple of enforcement opportunities working with bylaw in the past couple of years where we did ticket an offender for a prior and burning in a barrel.
Okay.
And,
So, thank you.
positive.
So, people that burn garbage are going to burn garbage regardless. So, adjusting these, increasing restrictions isn't going to stop the people that burn garbage. If they're already burning garbage, they're not going to, there's new restrictions, they're the exact same, but I'm still going to do it. So it's, in my opinion, you're just punishing the people who are doing it properly, much like a previous topic which we've discussed, which is this random person who shot a deer with a compound bow, hit its neck, and it wandered around Souk, and all of a sudden, now we're having a report, and we've had 3 meetings on this topic. It's this doesn't make sense, and in my opinion is a waste of resources and time, and we have so many other things going on. It's not a priority. If COVID lasts, then the province will continue its enforcement like it has stepped in now. That won't change, and our job will be to communicate and be a conduit for that information. The piece about just going back, I totally just lost my train of thought here. Some of the municipalities that you referenced previously, they have other options that Souk doesn't have. So in my opinion, that's not a fair comparison. And there is not a point to have a survey right now in the midst of this pandemic, for 3 reasons. 1, the timing. B, I loathe surveys anyway because they are so easy to direct a perspective. It's not, you can tee that survey up any way you like to create the outcome that you want. And if we're already discussing how much weight we're going to give that survey, what is the point of having that survey, period? like, to me, it's a waste of resources. And it's also offensive to people who do participate when we go back and say, well, we're not really going to give this any weight because it's not a fair spectrum of the community. And so it's a week for reach, it's weak for direction, and it's weak for timing. So I don't think we should have the survey at all. I think it should wait, and I appreciate that you want that information and you want to start before the next burning season, but I don't think we should do that. Based on the numbers alone, there isn't enough there to justify a push for this. So the Sooke Fire Department has put out 7 fires themselves. So in my opinion, you're just doing like your job like any municipality. So I'd be very curious to hear about the numbers that those same municipalities you mentioned with their tighter restrictions and their other options, how many fires are their fire departments still putting out? So it feels like we're really just being pushed down this channel, and it doesn't make sense. It feels like it's being fueled by few but very loud, strongly opinionated residents. And the timing is incredibly poor, and I think it will skew any report you put together. And in regards to like the health triggers that this has had, like, I get bronchitis, I have asthma, but like you have to have a realistic perspective too. And like I said, the province has inputted measures and restrictions that have nothing to do with us. Like they've mandated that based on their health concerns, and they'll continue to do that if we go to, like, as Councillor St. Pierre said, COVID-21. God forbid, yeah. And then just some more perspective, and I've said it before, like, we live in one of like the cleanest countries in the world. And then not only that, but we live in beautiful British Columbia. On top of that, it's Vancouver Island, and then it's Sooke. So we talk, like, all of a sudden we have a really strong issue with smoke and like fires. Is really odd to me. Like, let's talk about like all of our like transport, like 75% of the population commutes. Like, how is that for like your air quality? Why isn't that the biggest prerogative for us as a group? It's just really interesting to me that this is all of a sudden a big one. What else do I got here? Yeah, and then in regards to closing the windows even tighter, like, people clear when it's nice out. That's when like it's the easiest, and they all of a sudden have this excess growth and debris. So closing the windows without an added substitute, I disagree with. So I'm happy to accept for information, but I don't want to invest any more time in this at this point.
Nope, very good points, Councillor McMath. Councillor St. Pierre.
I think just a few comments, but I think for me, this is more about waste management. It's a waste management issue in many ways. Some of it is, entertainment. It's nice to have a fire and to look at it, and that's the campfire type of thing. But I think that what we're dealing with here are waste management issues of a growing community with more people. And so that's something that's just going to keep on basically compounding with time. And I think that's one reason to revisit the bylaw at this point in time. It's because we're a growing community and we have waste management issues. My hope is the public engagement will actually bring forward some good ideas in terms of how we actually want to manage that waste while meeting the needs of our community and making sure that they're heard. But that's not going to go away. We just have more people and we have more garbage, so we need to deal with it. One thing I would like to see, and I know that it's probably a little too soon with not knowing what our finances are going to be like specifically, but I would like to know what the price point would be for large item pickup so we could stop burning sofas. I would like to know what a chipping service might look like, because I'd like to know. And I seem to recall that within the Climate Action Committee, we sent forward to staff a request for more information about a pickup service, which Councillor Beddoes and quite a few of us were interested in seeing. And I'd like to know maybe at some point where that might be sitting in the queue, because I think we'd really like to know what's happening with that. But for me, it's about waste management. And then, of course, there's also the health concerns with burning, which, as Councillor McMath has pointed out, the province has got that covered. We've got a ban until things change. So that's less of a concern. I'm really looking at the waste management. I'd like to know what we're going to be doing with that and potentially have the community chime in on that one.
Just one piece to add, though, is that, should COVID continue, I think come the fall, we would need to look at some alternative for, if phase 4 doesn't happen because COVID has continued. it's likely that different orders are going to come in from the province, and there could be restrictions come fall on what burning might look like. So then what? Like everyone, not everyone, many people have held off and have stuff piled up in anticipation that come October they'll be able to burn it. So if they're unable to, then what do? Metchosin has started a chipping program, but they're under 5,000 people. So we're at like just under 15,000 people. So it's not the same comparison, but they were able to do something. Not all of our 15,000 people live on large lots that need clearing. So some can manage perfectly fine calling somebody in and taking their stuff away, or they don't have any large trees on their property at all because it could be a new development. So, but when you take a look at large rural properties that then are unable to burn, what sort of option? I'm just throwing that out there because it's a reality that we may face come October, depending on what happens through the summer and the coming months, right? It's, today's the start of phase 2, and every phase is contingent on the one before, so it's likely that this is going to continue. So what does that look like? But I agree, this is a waste management issue. Growing population, more people, more densification, and again, you have now what was once rural is now highly densified next to a rural property, and that's where you were having this clash. Because once upon a time, there was only one family exposed to things, and now there are many, and that's the growth, and that's the impact on it. And you weigh out the right to burn versus the right to clean air. So who's right here? Well, right now, the right to burn, COVID aside, has taken priority over health. When you just look up the calendar year and how many days you can burn versus how many days you can't, you would say that right to burn takes priority over right to clean air, sewer specified versus non-sewer specified areas, right? Councillor St. Pierre, you had a follow-up.
Just a quick follow-up. I'm actually really curious as to whether or not we could actually work with our local community groups on composting the wet leaves and the grass clippings specifically. Those are the kind of things that, at least in the fall, the wet leaves are going to show up, but during the entire summer, we're going to have grass clippings piling up. But this is potentially perfect mulch or compost for gardens and so on and so forth. I'd like to know if we can actually work with our community to resolve this, just because it's one less thing to worry about, and it would actually go into gardens, which would be good.
Councillor Beddoes, did you have your hand up?
Well, I didn't, but I will take the opportunity. Well, I certainly agree it's a waste management issue. Again, I just want to reiterate that I don't have a problem with engaging the public for information. You should be doing that on an ongoing basis. I am concerned about the information you're going to get over the next 2 or 3 months. And I would feel much better if you went and did this survey in September as opposed to now. I am concerned about the knee-jerk reaction, and as Councillor McMath said, there are a vocal few that will be in your face, and sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I certainly don't, I'm okay with the fire department carrying it on. But do it with some caution. So that's my last say. Thank you.
Mr. McInnes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I absolutely do agree as well that vast majority of what we've been talking about today is about solid waste collection. But I do also think that we need to have a fair understanding of what sorts of materials will continue to be prohibited and what won't be. And the other part is that we need to understand, are we going to, for solid waste collection, are we going to create a monopoly, or is there going to be opportunity for people to opt in or opt out? Because putting together those financial models on what a depot or a drop-off center may look like, or what curbside pickup may look like, we need to understand what the burning piece is going to do before we can look at the collection models and put together financial models to inform the public of what this would cost.
Burning question. Did you say the burning question? Yes, I did. Okay, so, yeah, no, I appreciate everyone's comments here. It's the case where there's no easy answer, just given the layers of complexity that COVID has brought on us. However, I do find that we do need to find a way to continue to move along and to move along the business of the district. Otherwise, nothing will ever happen here, and you'll be sitting here in a few years wondering what we accomplished in the term, and can't just say, oh, COVID, we didn't do anything. Councillor Beddoes. Perfect, handing it to you. Oh, I'm going to go to Councillor Bateman, and then I'll turn to you for a motion. Go ahead, Councillor.
This is just a comment regarding public input, and it's important for all of our processes, but we've also been elected as representatives of the public, working with professionals in the fire department to come up with municipal standards, right? And I agree we need as much feedback as possible, but we will also, as stated, we'll get squeaky wheels on both sides. And the decisions will have to be made based on best practices. So simple as that. So over to you, Councillor Beddoes.
I'm the chair. Thank you, Councillor Bateman. No, just. No, you're right. Councillor Beddoes.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. I've heard everybody speak here, so I'm ready to make a motion. Is that first of all, the Committee of the Whole recommend that we receive this report, first of all, and thank you for the effort that's gone into it. And the second is that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to forward an amendment bylaw to the Fire Protection Services bylaw, 2007 bylaw 9292 in September 2020 as it pertains to open air fires and campfires. That's my motion, and with that, we, as Councillor Bateman said and McMath, we have the final say on this. So if some stuff comes forward, I am okay with dealing with it then. But I think we need to move on. So that's my motion. Is that good enough?
It was fine. It's just in terms of what staff put forward of the recommendation, you don't want the second paragraph then. The second one was that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council to authorize staff to solicit public input on those sections.
Oh, yeah, no, that should be in there too, sorry, yeah.
So are you comfortable actually with just moving the recommendation
Yeah,
as
sure.
it was presented,
Yeah.
or were you looking to amend that?
No, I'm okay with it. I think with that motion, I believe the chief and that staff are aware of what the pitfalls are, and will move forward in a proper manner and bring us back a report, and we can deal with the nuances of it then. So
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Kind of
so-
botched that, but it's okay, as long as everybody understands. Let's get going, let's go to the recommendation, and let's get on with this and see what we get into September. I understand the pitfalls, but we do need to move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So there's no seconder required because we're in Committee of the Whole. So now we're on the recommendation as it's presented here. Councillor Lajeunesse, Councillor McMath. Oh, you're not going? No, Councillor McMath.
For the first portion about soliciting public input, I'd like to see the survey before it goes out. And then the third, or the second paragraph about the amendment for a bylaw, I don't see any mention of like the waste program that we've touched on, which is sort of like the sole issue here essentially. So if that could be added. And it's also interesting that we're going to bring the bylaw forward prior to the public input, but I'll just leave it at that.
So what was your amendment?
That we review the survey before it goes out to the public,
Okay,
and that the addition of like a waste management program be included in the second paragraph.
okay,
It's kind of friendly.
okay, so corporate staff have that, so
Sorry, can you just repeat that? I've got it up on the screen now.
So somewhere in the first part that, somewhere, is that council received the survey in advance of it going live? I don't know where Councillor McMath wanted to insert that, but that was the amendment that was put forward. And also within the second or third paragraph, perhaps when maybe this is friendly amendment to the amendment, but when staff come forward with an amendment bylaw, that information regarding a pickup drop-off service be presented then? I'm looking at Mr. McInnes, and then there's the date here of September 2020. I think it's just, I'm going to leave it with staff to decide on what month would be, like you would return. It's just if things change and emergency, like, I don't want staff to be held. You were supposed to bring this to September 2020, and meanwhile, we've reverted back to phase 2, and we're in full emergency mode, and we've dealt with the wildfire. So I would just take the month out so that it could be more in alignment with what works for staff work plan.
Perfect. So, okay to go ahead with public engagement / survey in the near term. And then in the fall, bring back suggested amendments to that bylaw. Plus, some sort of framework for solid waste collection. That solid waste collection, in my experience, is going to take some significant public engagement, moving from where residents and businesses are responsible for their own collection to a monopoly. It's a significant process to work through.
So
and especially if you want to include commercial and not just residential.
It may just be a very high level, what would such an element look like? It was something that we put in our strategic plan. It's something that we're starting to talk about as a community. So not a lot of, I think it's just introducing that concept in terms of what that might look like. And in regards to the draft bylaw, in my earlier comments, it may be in this case, what we will see is just something that's in alignment with a provincial law. If they've made, because that's where we've run into issues in the past. The province has changed this, and we're stuck on something, and now we're out, and ultimately the provincial law will trump ours. So rather than being so detailed, it may be the case of making an amendment, and that'll be the first thing we do, is just, this is the provincial law, this is how it is, and we educate on that. And then in other years, other things start to step into play, because that's where we run into challenges with our community. Councillor Beddoes and then Councillor McMath.
Just to our, through the chair to the CAO, my concern is not so much at this point, like total garbage collection in the town, it's just the garden waste portion of it, in that this would go hand in hand with the fire regulation. I am interested in curbside garbage, and I have some ideas on that, but right now I think when you come back for your report, it's just what's it like to set up a drop-off place so residents with small lots can bring their garden refuge down, like cuttings and tree limbs and things like that. That's what I'm interested in. I don't need a great long thing about contracting out to the various people to pick up garbage on the curb. I think in September or whenever we bring this in, if you could have something on that, that would be, I don't think it'd be too expensive, but I think you understand where I'm coming from there.
If I could, Your Worship, that sort of precludes the idea that with kitchen scraps, turning that into a revenue source through soil replacement or composting, that wouldn't be part of this discussion then.
No. Councillor McMath?
Just to be the devil's advocate, you know?
It's your amendment.
So the first portion, is it a little bit redundant that we're going to the public if we're still waiting on provincial feedback? Like, is that not a piece that could wait?
Well, if I could, Your Worship, the Class A burning is already, the province has made changes. So I think, I'm not convinced that the public understands that change at this point. So part of our campaign needs to be at least communicating the Class A burning.
So you want the survey to basically include an education component to it?
I think it has to, for sure,
Okay.
because the Class A burning is now prohibited. And it's part of the driver as to why we're actually going to the public, if you read tea leaves, there's probably more changes to come. Do we want to wait for those changes, or do we want to be proactive?
Yeah, I just would hate for us to do work and then the province say something and then we did all this work for nothing. But then also, I'm still like hesitant. I like the education through the survey piece, absolutely. I'm just a bit hesitant because we are going to get those skewed answers, and I would just hate for us to get the education piece out there, but then not to use those opinions because of the time. I'm just like hesitant about that.
Just on the survey, there's always the option that, the survey closed, 30 people have replied, so staff provide us a response and we say, okay, well, we need to run it, extend it, and get it out in different ways. And that's what I mean by a survey is sometimes, seen it many times, is you post the results and someone says, I had no idea the survey was on. I would have liked to have filled it out, right? And that happens all the time with everything, from health to highways to everything. It's like, I had no idea. And it's only when the results are up there. But arguably, you could say that, the squeaky wheel got their way in 2011, and then all these changes happened, and now it's just the reality of growing, and that's part of it. It's the way it is.
And then I just don't see the part, like I would like to see the survey before it goes to the public.
Prior to issuance.
It's on the last sentence. This is engagement plan and online survey provided to council prior to issuance. So we have the amendment on there, so we should vote on the amendment. It gets a bit blurry when we don't have to second things here, the chair spills water on herself. So anyway, I'll call a question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed is carried unanimously. So now we have the full recommendation here as it's been amended. So is there any further? So everyone understands what we're doing. We'll be doing some education pieces on what's changed from the province. It's a good opportunity for that. It's an opportunity to have some conversations with residents, and we'll see how this goes in the next little while. Everyone's clear? Clear? Good? All right, call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed is carried unanimously as well. New business, of which because even with this, it's a big issue, one email, right? And so that's where it's just without having regular community conversations, it's just, we need to start reaching out a bit more. Okay, no new business, so motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor McMath, no seconded required. Any discussion on adjourning? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously.
We also need to adjourn the special. We had a special meeting.